Social media is poisoning our brains. Everyone knows that, yet no one can actually stop using these pieces of technology. We're addicted, and even though we know it, we still cannot put them down. I recently had a conversation with New York Times bestselling author Robert Greene. You may have seen some of his books, like The 48 Laws of Power or Mastery. In my conversation, Robert explicitly states why social media is poisoning our brains and how we have to learn to think for ourselves. Here's Robert explaining this exact idea. As you kind of extrapolate that out, obviously the rise of social media and technology, there's many people would argue that's been a net positive, right? A company like a Facebook or a Twitter allows people to share ideas. It allows for people to learn. It allows for families to reconnect or old friends. And then you can kind of go off of the social media platforms to other pieces of technology that have definitely had a positive impact. But it sounds like you're making a nuanced argument, which is, although there are very many positive impacts of that technology, one of the downsides, or maybe one of the steps backward for society, is that we spend less time face-to-face with that human interaction. Is that okay because there's a positive impact from the technology and not everything is 100% good? Or do you think that actually society would be better off maybe without some of the social media platforms or kind of the activities that people do on their phones every day?
Well, imagine this. Imagine you didn't have your access to all these things that you have. And the human animal is made so that we need constant stimulation. Our brains are continually needing things to feed on, to process. And so if you don't have your phone, you don't have your computer, you're left on your own, what are you going to do? You're going to become extremely creative with your time, with how you're going to find ways to entertain yourself, often in a group situation. And I remember when I was a child, I'm not trying to sound like I'm a Luddite or anything. I'm just answering your question as best I can. But the fact that, we had television, and of course that was a big thing because I'm so old, I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. But mostly you had to make up your own games. You had to constantly create things to keep yourself from being continually bored. And that kind of develops the mind. It develops your imagination in a very positive way. And I remember back in the early years of the internet, which, strangely enough, is like some 20 years ago, where it had more of that kind of interactive possibilities that have come since then. So I remember, for instance, like on Amazon, something that was really exciting to me was I would look for a particular book, and then it would suggest other books, which it still does, but it would also suggest communities of people that you could interact with who also were fans of this book or might be interested in this kind of subject. I thought this was great, and I was actually connecting to people. I even made some friends, people who were like Nietzsche fanatics like I am, or particular forms of philosophy, etc. And soon Amazon got rid of that because the algorithms, something like that isn't making any money for Amazon. And the need to continually generate profit made it so that everything was designed for selling things. And so, excuse me, thank you. And so, people, that kind of interpersonal thing where you could create a community of like-minded people and connect is something that's been degraded over the years, and it's turned into something else in a way. And I think people are kind of hungry for more real human interaction. I'm sensing this in Gen Z, in young people who are growing up now, that they're a little bit tired, weary of the hours that they're being sucked into things like Instagram, which I use quite a bit. I'm at fault as well. I think I find it very seductive, but I think they're hungry for something a little more real, a little more experiential, a little more interactive and interpersonal. And I think actually that is the future, combining the immense powers of the digital world, which we all know and appreciate and love, with something a little more personal and human, where you use this immense tool for something where, we now can create a group and we can meet people, But, the thing that's revolutionized my life, to highlight the positive aspect, is if I have some idea, like I'm researching a story about a particular man who there are not many books written about for my new book, and I can just go on Google and put his name in with like 2 other words of a subject that he's interested in, and all these things pop up. It's insane. It's the kind of thing that would, like a Leonardo da Vinci would have like just gone crazy over. The powers of it are absolutely immense, but it could be used, I think, sometimes for better purposes. That's my only point.
Now, if there's one thing that we learned over the last 2.5 years, it is that the algorithm is incredibly powerful. It tries to program your brain. It tries to tell you what to think. It shows you what it thinks that you want to see. But what you need to do is take back control. Fight back against the algorithm. Instead, learn to think for yourself. Think critically. Think independently. And start actually looking at the source material. Go find the data points. Go find the information. Do the hard work. Do not get programmed by a piece of software. Do not allow large technology companies to tell you what to think. Instead, think for yourself. It will serve you well, both in the short and the long term. Robert Greene nails it. Social media is poisoning your brain, and the algorithm is programming your mind. All you have to do is opt out at some point. Spend a little less time on social media and in front of the algorithm, and start to think for yourself. You'll thank yourself later.